Keeping your kitchen knives sharp makes them easier, faster, and more fun to use. And even though it sounds backwards, a sharp knife is actually safer because it cuts with less pressure and less slipping. But choosing a knife sharpener is confusing. You've got cheap pull-through sharpeners, expensive electric sharpeners, Whetstones, fixed angle systems, belt sharpeners, and these newer rolling sharpeners. To find out which sharpeners actually work best for home cooks, I tested them all. For each sharpener, I dulled 3 different knives, measured their sharpness, sharpened them according to the instructions, and then measured their sharpness again. I used a mix of cheap $7 knives and quality Western and Japanese style knives to see how each sharpener handled different blades. Throughout my testing, I tracked how long each sharpener took, how easy it was to set up and use, how much mess it made, how loud it was, how easy it was to store, and what problems I ran into along the way. By the end, you'll know which sharpeners are right for you, which ones are worth the learning curve, and which ones I'd skip. I'm going to start with the most beginner-friendly options and end with the most advanced. The most beginner-friendly option is a manual pull-through sharpener. You set it on the counter, put the knife in the slot, and pull it back and forth. There's no power, no setup, no angle to figure out, and it's small enough to fit in a drawer. Some have a V-shaped slot with carbide or ceramic pieces that scrape against the edge. Others, like this Chef's Choice model, use small rotating diamond-coated wheels. I prefer the rotating wheel style because it feels more controlled and less harsh than dragging a knife through a fixed V-shaped scraper. Before I get into the results, just a quick note on the scores. I measured each knife with a BESS certified sharpness tester, which shows how many grams of pressure it takes to cut through a thin test wire. The lower the number, the sharper the knife. Anything over 400 still needs work. Around 300 is sharp, and around 200 is the range I was really hoping to see. With the manual pull-through sharpener, the results were okay, but not great. I followed the manufacturer's instructions exactly, and the cheap knife went from 708 to 415. The softer Western-style knife went from 753 to 439. And the harder Japanese-style knife went from 700 to 318. I sharpened each knife a second time, and the cheap knife barely changed, the Western-style knife improved a little, and the Japanese-style knife actually got worse. So although this type of sharpener is fast and easy, it's not the most effective. You also can't adjust the angle on most models. It can take off too much material if you press down too hard, and I noticed scratches on the side of one knife after sharpening. Electric pull-through sharpeners work a lot like the manual version, but instead of pulling the knife through a stationary slot, there are motorized abrasive wheels inside. You pull the knife through each slot, the wheels grind and refine the edge, and the angle guides help keep the knife in the right position. The main benefit is speed. There's almost no setup, you don't need to hold the angle yourself, the machine does most of the work, and it works on almost any size knife. In my testing, this sharpener was much more effective than the manual. In just a handful of passes through each slot, the cheap knife went from 924 to 173, and the harder Japanese-style knife went from 598 to 184. The softer Western-style knife was a little strange because it didn't get sharp on the first attempt, but after I ran it through again, it finished at 144. The knives felt noticeably sharper in my other cutting tests too. All 3 sliced through a tomato cleanly and passed the paper test. And the edge of the Western-style knife was so sharp, it sliced right through not just 1 water bottle, but 2 water bottles without knocking them over. Cheers. That said, there are some major downsides. Before I get into that, I want to quickly thank Masterclass for sponsoring this video. Masterclass is a membership where you can learn directly from the people who are literally the best at what they do. Recently, I watched Thomas Keller's class on Masterclass. He's one of the most respected chefs in the world, and he's the only American chef to win multiple Michelin star ratings. One thing that stood out to me was his approach to cooking eggs. I've cooked hundreds of eggs testing pans for this channel, but his omelet technique was totally different from what I expected. Instead of rushing it on the stovetop, he cooks it gently and finishes it in the oven so the eggs stay incredibly soft and delicate. But the biggest takeaways are not the recipes themselves. It's his overall approach to cooking. He focuses on the small details like heat control, timing, and understanding how small changes in technique can completely change the outcome of a dish. Instead of mindlessly scrolling when you have downtime, Masterclass is a great way to learn something useful that you can apply right away. The membership costs $10 a month, billed annually, and it gives you unlimited access to the full catalog of classes. If you want to check it out, click the link in the video description or scan the QR code, and when you sign up using either one, you'll get at least 15% off your membership. So I mentioned that electric pull-through sharpeners have some downsides. One is that this thing is loud. It sounds more like a power tool, so just be ready for that. There's also less control than it seems. The angle guides help, but the blade is hidden inside the slot, so you can't really see what's happening to the edge. You're relying on the sound and feel of the machine to know whether the knife is making proper contact. And because it works quickly, mistakes matter more. If you press too hard, pull unevenly, or sharpen more than needed, you can remove more metal than you meant to. If your knife has a thick bolster, or the handle sits close to the edge, the very back of the blade may not reach the sharpening wheels. So part of the edge near the handle can be left untouched. And unlike a manual pull-through, there's more that can go wrong over time. You've got a motor and abrasive spinning discs that can wear down or get clogged with metal dust. Rolling sharpeners have become extremely popular over the last few years, and they're really simple to use. You attach the knife to a magnetic angle support with the edge facing up, then roll the sharpener back and forth along the edge. Depending on the knife, you may need to position the blade higher on the magnet or raise the roller on a thicker cutting board so the disc can reach the edge. The main benefits are that the magnetic block holds the knife at a consistent angle. The edge stays visible the whole time. Switching from the coarse sharpening side to the finer finishing side takes about 1 second, and some models let you swap in different discs if you want more control. I tested the Horrell 3 for this video, and I've also tested several other rolling sharpeners in the past, including the Tumbler and WorkSharp. It's important to know that quality varies a lot. Some roll smoothly, some feel stiff, some have stronger magnets, and some are much easier to control than others. In terms of performance, the results were mixed. The cheap knife barely improved after more than 6 minutes of sharpening and failed the paper test. The softer Western style knife got much sharper, finishing around 300, and the harder Japanese style knife got the sharpest. If the knife is very dull, damaged, or you're changing the edge angle, the first sharpening can take a while, but if you're patient, it can do a pretty good job. Just for the challenge, and because I've seen rolling sharpener brands do this in viral videos, I tried sharpening a butter knife. After 15 minutes per side, it went from extremely dull to under 300. So these rollers can create a brand new edge, it just takes time. Although they're easy to use, there are a few annoying things about rolling sharpeners. Near the tip, chef's knives get thinner and start to curve, so you have to lighten your pressure and turn the roller with the blade. If you just roll straight, the tip can flex away from the disc and not sharpen evenly. Some handles can also block the roller from reaching the very back of the edge. And because the edge faces up while you sharpen, you need to be careful that your hand doesn't slip. Electric belt sharpeners come in many forms, but this WorkSharp model is one of the most popular. Unlike the electric pull-through sharpener, which has spinning wheels, this type has a small moving abrasive belt. You hold the knife against the angle guide and pull the blade across the belt. This model has 2 angle settings, 20 and 25 degrees, and 3 belts with different levels of abrasiveness. I like that you place the heel of the knife on the belt before pressing the power button. With the electric pull-through, the wheels are already spinning when the knife enters the slot. With this one, you can line everything up first, then start sharpening. In my testing, it did a good job overall. In just a few minutes, the cheap knife improved from $489 to $229. And the harder Japanese style knife went from $543 to $160, which was one of the better results across the board. The softer Western style knife started extremely dull and improved a lot after the first round, but it still needed more work. I sharpened it a second time, and that got it down to $219, which is great. On the negative side, this type of sharpener is loud, it only has 2 angle settings, it's designed for righties, and changing belts can be annoying, especially the fine grit belts because it's more flexible. But the bigger issue is the mess. As you sharpen, fine metal dust flies into the air and gets all over the sharpener and the table. It's not something I want to breathe in or spread around my kitchen. This feels more like a tool I'd use in a garage, basement, or workshop. It's not something I'd keep on the kitchen counter. There are ways to manage the dust, but for most home cooks, it's a pain. Fixed angle sharpening systems look complicated, but most are pretty simple. You snap the tower into the base, attach the magnetic sharpening rod, clamp the knife in place, set the angle, and start sharpening. With this type of sharpener, the knife is stationary and you move the abrasive stone back and forth along the edge. Then you flip the knife over and repeat the same process on the other side. The main benefit is control. You can choose the exact angle, and the rod holds that angle for you as you sharpen. And since the edge is right in front of you, you can clearly see the results as you work. In my testing though, the results were inconsistent. The cheap knife barely improved after the first round of sharpening, and still wasn't great after a second round. The softer Western style knife also struggled and actually got worse after the second sharpening. But the harder Japanese style knife did much better. Besides the sharpening results, it's kind of a pain to use. It doesn't take long to assemble, but you still have to clamp the knife tightly, set the angle, sharpen one side, rotate the knife, sharpen the other side, and repeat that process as you work through the grits. And because the knife has to be clamped securely, it takes some effort to loosen it when you're done. With 1 or 2 knives, that's no big deal, but if you're sharpening a bunch at once, it gets annoying. The actual sharpening is repetitive too. The stone is pretty short, so you have to make a lot of back and forth passes along the blade. If you're fixing a really dull or damaged knife, that can put a lot of strain on your arm and shoulder. The one thing I noticed with this Work Sharp model is that the base and clamp has some flex and movement. I had to hold it down with one hand, and even then it bounced slightly. You also need to be careful. Your hand is moving back and forth close to a sharp edge. And with this model, the whole sharpener can tip if you're not holding it steady. To be fair, there are a lot of fixed angle systems, and some are much sturdier than this one, so not every issue I ran into applies to every model. But these are the things I'd look into before buying one. A whetstone is the simplest option, but it has the highest learning curve. You put it on the counter, add water if the stone requires it, hold the knife at the correct angle, and move the blade across the stone to grind a new edge. Some stones need to soak in water before you use them. Others, like the Shapton stones I tested, are splash and go. So you just add a little water and start sharpening. The biggest advantage is flexibility. You can sharpen almost any knife, any shape, any size, and any angle. You're not limited to preset slots, fixed guides, or whatever angle the sharpener gives you. In my testing, Whetstones worked really well. The cheap knife started over 1,000 and finished around 200. The softer Western style knife started over 900 and finished at 266. And the knife with the harder steel started at 460 and finished at 250. All 3 knives passed the paper test, and the tomato and paper cuts were noticeably cleaner than most of the other sharpeners. The downside is that Whetstones take practice. Unlike the other systems, nothing holds the angle for you. You have to find the ideal angle and keep it consistent as you move the knife across the stone. If you lift your wrist, tilt the blade, or change the angle as you go, you can sharpen unevenly or remove metal where you didn't mean to. There's a reason there are thousands of videos about how to use a whetstone, plus all sorts of gadgets and tricks to make the process easier. They're also messier. You're using water, the stone creates a slurry, and you need to rinse everything off when you're done. So after all that testing, which sharpener should you buy? Before I give you my take, just a quick heads up that all the sharpeners I tested are linked in the video description. If you're willing to spend time practicing, and you have the physical ability, it's worth learning how to use a whetstone. They're affordable, easy to store, work on all knives, and in my testing, they produced some of the best results. But if you don't have the time, patience, or desire to learn that skill, and you just want sharp knives fast, I'd go with an electric pull-through sharpener. It was one of the fastest and easiest options to use, and it gave me excellent results. Rolling sharpeners are easier than whetstones, and they're less aggressive than electric sharpeners, but the best ones are expensive and they can take a while on very dull knives. Fixed angle systems, manual pull-through sharpeners, and electric belt sharpeners all have their place, but they wouldn't be my first choice for most home cooks. If you're still not sure which one to buy, this chart will help you compare all the options side by side. If this was helpful, check out this video where I break down the best cutting board materials. And for more videos like this, click the logo to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.